Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Return to the Realm, a rereaders podcast for the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. I'm Kayiu, here with Alex and Leah, and today we're going to be doing chapters 15 through 19 of Ship of Magic. Or we might not get through all of that because this is the section where things start happening, and you'll know if we didn't get through all of that because you'll see it in the episode title. Um, but yeah, so far, most of what we've done in like the first I think it's like 3 episodes we've recorded so far, has been all of like the setup for the characters' motivations and them leaving on their individual quests. And this is when shit actually starts happening, basically. But we filled up 2 hours like each episode for the last three, so I shudder to think what's going to happen this time.
I know it's gonna be wild. Did we mention this was spoilers all?
We didn't. So, yeah. By the way, this is a spoilers all podcast, so and that includes not only the Live Ship Traders trilogy, but every other series in the Realm of the Elderlings, I don't know what you'd call it, 16-book chronicle. So if you haven't finished all of them, do that and then come back, or if you don't care about spoilers, you can stick on with us. But yeah.
New readers beware.
Mm-hmm. Especially this part, because there's so much like little foreshadowing or like callbacks or yeah, there's a lot going on.
I have a lot to say about a lot of things.
We're gonna be, at least me, is gonna be talking about Amber slash Fool a lot. So
Same.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I just soak in every Amber section because like I need that.
I know. Like crumbs leading back to pits.
Yes.
I'll talk more about this when we get there, but I think seeing Amber from Paragon's perspective is so cool because I feel like because Paragon isn't like distracted by like how Amber like looks, you get like a lot more like straight to the core of who Amber is, and it's so revealing as like, yeah, okay, this is I can tell who this is totally.
Yeah. I'm excited.
But yeah, okay. Let's start off Chapter 15, Negotiations. And also, I didn't realize last time that there were, like, seasons that this book was divided into. So, this is also the last chapter of Midsummer before we move into Autumn. So, uh, so much happens this chapter. I actually, just to make sure I kept track of all of the perspectives, I wrote a little tracker. So we have Wintrow, then Althea, then Ronica, then Keffria, then back to Ronica, and then finally with the Tangle. So,
I didn't realize how many happened in this chapter.
oh yeah, it's just all over the place. So,
This chapter seemed like it is kind of a shorter chapter, I feel, and then it has so many different perspectives. And I think the next chapter is more than double the length and has only a handful.
well, the next one
The next
has.
chapter's like over 50 pages. I remember because
So
I
long.
always like look to see. I usually read a chapter a day, and I'll like
Me
look
too.
ahead to see how long it is. And I was like, holy shit,
Yes. I was
beefy.
stressed when I was reading this. I was
Yeah,
reading it in the car and I'm like, oh my God, I'm never gonna finish.
it's like mostly Althea, I think,
Yeah.
too.
And
Well, there's also the
I
big
think
ass Wintrow section at the end that I hate,
same.
where Wintrow's just like wandering around the city like, this place
Oh,
sucks. I don't want to fight a bear.
not listening to everybody that like warns him.
Mm.
I remember the first time I read that, I was so frustrated. I was like, just go back to the ship, you idiot. Everybody told you it wasn't safe. And then you're like, why are people being mean to me? I'm just a little priest boy in sailor
Well,
outfit.
okay, but they were being dicks. They're like, oh, you're a sailor, which means you're bad and you shouldn't be here. The,
No, I hated that.
They were being dicks, but like, it annoyed me that everybody was like, be careful, be careful. Like, it's not safe. We're not liked here. And then he just like wanders off without
well,
any.
but he does it because
Traveler in me was like, ugh, heed people's warnings.
fair, but I guess he immediately realizes he's like, oh, it's my fault. Why everyone warned me? Why did I do
Yeah.
that? And he didn't do it because he was selfish. He was like, he
He
was,
wanted to,
he,
yeah.
yeah, and he was feeling sorry for Mild because Mild wanted to go off and do his own thing.
Well, and I think he felt safer because he had Ephron's like memory of this island, and it seemed much more friendly from Ephron's memories
Or
than
beautiful. Yeah.
it is now. Yeah. And it seems like he thought he was going to be okay because of that connection or something. I don't know.
Hmm. But yeah, okay. Before we get there, in this chapter, Wintrow is still sad. This chapter starts off with uh, Wintrow basically being like, I've gotten pushed around by Torg so much, I've just come to accept it. And I think this is the first time we meet Mild, who is former ship's boy before Wintrow, and who's like, dog, just stop letting him push you around. You're you're not winning a moral victory by doing that. You're actually showing everyone that you're easy to push around. Um,
Mild also like makes a joke, being like, someday someone's gonna push Torg over the side, and maybe it'll be me. And it's like obviously a funny joke, and Wintrow's like, I'm so much better than you, I would never murder Torg.
I know, it's
no.
so annoying. I laughed out loud when Mild was like, he added it pleasantly that it might be him to kill him. I laughed. I thought that was so funny. I think Mild is so funny. But yeah, Winter
I
needs to take it.
remember, doesn't he? I think he might die.
I think he
When
does, and I'm like sad about it.
I know when I think when Kenneth takes over
Yeah.
or something. I remember being sad.
I feel like something happens like during the storm. You know when
Well,
is
like,
that huge,
doesn't he
huge
like
storm?
crack his head or something?
I don't remember, but something
There's
happens then, and he does
more.
become a goner.
I feel like I just remember like Winter like stumbling on his dead body, and it's just like, oh, damn.
Oh, Mild's dead. Yeah.
It's not gonna go well for him.
Um, but look, okay. In Winter's defense, I think that like he's starting to understand that he needs to adapt to survive. Like there's a thing where he's talking about like, um, he gets like, okay, I need to feign subservience to Torg, and that doesn't like hurt my dignity at all. It's just something I'm doing in order to survive. But like he's not understanding that he needs to like extend that philosophy to everything else. And Mild is like, just don't let him push you around. You're not, yeah. The, and like, I don't blame Wintrow for like not understanding the humor of a culture that he has not been a part of since he was like 2 or whatever. Like it's annoying, and it's like you're such like a wet blanket, but I get it. And there's also like, I don't know if it's this chapter or next chapter, but there's a part where he's like talking. He like even wonders like, am I like too sensitive? He's like, has my conscience become so tender that it like comes between me and my friend, or like not my friends, my like fellow people. So
I think he does that when he's like forgiving the day at
yeah.
night.
Mm-hmm. So like, you, like I said, like I think this was like last episode. Even though like I think Winter and Althea can be annoying, I have a lot more patience for them than other characters because I feel like they're actively trying to grow. But yeah, this is me just swooping in as the Wintrow Defense Squad.
I am starting to like him and Althea so much more now. I think that they were annoying at first, but now they're actually starting to grow and learn and change, and that makes me enjoy them so much more. I feel like they're coming out of their Malta phase very quickly, and the other guys did not before.
Mm-hmm. And like speaking of Malta phase, like we do have a Malta chapter this time. I think it's really interesting to see how like all 3 of them are uniquely stubborn and like wanting to carve out a life of their own in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Like on a first read, they seem like so different. You're like, what these guys are some from the same fucking family, but like there's like that core motivation. I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me how much my perspective about them changes on a reread, because I feel like now I can see more of like the Vestrit stubborn in all of them, and like before I was like, how are Wintrow and Malta even from the same family? But they are so like all the Vestrits are so similar. They
Yeah.
just have like something different that they're clinging to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also because they like frame Wintrow, or like people seeing Wintrow, as being passive, right? Which is very different from the active Altia and Malta. But it's just that like he has his own conviction, and that just causes him to act in that way. His conviction is just directed in a different way. Yeah.
There was one thing that I noticed at the beginning before even the section with Mild. Wintrow is talking about, he's like thinking about escaping and stuff. And he says that the monks would change his name and place him elsewhere where his father would never find him. Do you really think that the monks would do that? Because I feel like while they would like sympathize and empathize with how he, like everything that he's going through, they would say that like that's the path that Saw chose for him, and he should kind of go back to that life and do what he must.
Yeah, that's probably true, because isn't one of Saw's principles like listening to your parents or obeying your parents or something?
Mm-hmm.
So they'd probably be like, well, you're still under your parents' authority or whatever, so go fuck yourself.
I feel like they would help him find meaning in the way that his life is going instead of like changing that path.
I could see Bernadal helping him because of that personal connection. I also don't think that the priest would stand for like the abuse that Kyle foists on. Like I think they would be like, well, you do need to experience the world, but Kyle is an asshole. But I don't think they would go so far as like putting him in witness protection. Like I think
Same.
that's just like Wintrow fantasizing.
Yeah, that's just childish hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Witness protection. Speaking of Kyle, there was something I picked out on this read that I think you mentioned in your notes too, Alex, but there's a part where he's talking to Keffria and he's like, I recall you as you were when you were a girl. Consider how long it took me to awaken you to a woman's feelings. Not all men have that patience. And I was like, did Kyle groom Keffria?
I had the same thought.
And I feel like that makes me have a little bit more sympathy for her, because people that have been groomed usually have a harder time like learning how to think for themselves, because they're like manipulated at such a young age and taught like think the thoughts that I have, or like I'm the one in charge, blah blah blah.
I know
So,
best.
yeah. So I think that makes some things about her make more sense if you have that perspective.
Definitely, yeah. I don't know if it's in this. No, it's the next chapter. I have a lot of things to say about both of their parenting in the next chapter, I think, or the chapter after that, but I fucking hate Kyle still. He sucks. And the fact that he went behind Keffria's back to give Malta the money to make her own dress, like, she said, let's be a united front, and he said, yeah, okay, but like actually not really, no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking hate him.
He 100% did that just to spite her.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a puke.
Yeah.
Also, like, Keffria in this chapter finally starts, like, kind of opening her eyes to how shitty he is, which is satisfying, but at the same time, it's kind of annoying, because it's like, I'm sorry, but this should have happened when he punched your son in the face in front of you and knocked him out cold for literally just, like, voicing an opinion.
I know, what the actual fuck.
The fact that it comes just from him, like, saying something that puts their courtship in a different light instead of him knocking out their kid is, like...
That's a very, like, pre-awakening Malta But
Yes.
like, oh, he ruined my memories of this and the way that I perceived this, and it's all about her.
Super self-centered.
Mm. Yeah, both like Ronica and Keffria coming to realize that Kyle is a bad person, it feels so abrupt to me. It feels
Yeah.
like I'm like, did you not get like inklings of this? I feel like, and we have like 14 chapters or like 15 chapters of like just the setup. So I kind of wish that like they'd like slowly become more distrusting of Kyle instead of just like all at once being like, huh, I guess he is a bad person.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, and they seem so like I understand that they were only seeing him for brief glimpses of time and he was kind of like reeling it in because Ephraim was still alive, but you'd think like considering that like we basically never as readers see him be anything other than shit. So it's hard to understand how they're like, we've known him for 14 years and we trusted him enough to give him our ship
Yeah.
when like he's just shit the whole time we've
Yeah.
seen
And
him.
not even like just shit, but he's like
Like the
openly,
entire
proudly
family
shit.
control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not
Yep.
like he has no subtlety to him whatsoever.
Because he doesn't think that he is shit. He like isn't smart enough to hide it because he genuinely thinks that he's like the goat.
Yeah.
I think something that really annoys me now thinking about it is that if Ronica, because I'm sure she had to have been thinking, we need to give Kyle the ship since Ephraim got sick and started dying. Like, once she got out of the denial phase that Ephraim was dying, like, she went right into we have to have Keffria be in charge of everything. Why didn't they try harder to educate him about the live ship and all of the like Bingtown trader traditions if she like knew that she was going to be doing that?
I think the
Because
assumption was that Kyle is an outsider and Keffria knows all this, so she can just tell him anything that's important.
that's so fucking stupid. They should have just kept Althea because she knows how, like, she knows exactly what Vivacia needs, which is her and like family and everything, and how important it is at the first like stages of life for a live ship. And she knows about the freaking Rainwild traders and all of their like traditions and everything. Like, it's just Ronica clearly did not think things very through.
She drastically overestimated both Keffria and Kyle.
Yeah. At this point, Althea is her only like capable child
Hmm.
and has been since the beginning.
Yep.
She might have been a little bit overconfident in her skills as a like sailor and stuff, but like she definitely is the most competent even from the beginning.
Mhm. And I feel like even like later where she's like, I was so overconfident or whatever, it's like, no, you're like, you have the skills. Like, you not being as strong doesn't change that. And even like, I had that thought and then Brashen immediately echoed it. It's like, yeah, like, she's doing all the work that she can do.
Well, and she did admit that when she got tired, she did just kind of leave the task and go back to her room to do something else.
Hmm.
But she has already learned so much more, and she had at least the basic skills and knowledge. She had more than just basic knowledge of like how to run a ship and everything like that.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I don't remember if this happens, but I feel like yeah, there's a difference between like going on like an easy merchant ship and doing the task there or like working 24/7. And I feel like she'll definitely like develop the strength over the course of the trip.
Yeah.
Especially now that they literally have like they have like red meat from the seals or whatever.
Hmm.
That she'll bulk you up.
Yeah, she was having like a handful of food a day, probably at most.
Hmm. She was like
She
having
also
the boss scraping the bottom of the soup bowl. I like
With
this vaguely turnip shaped lump.
a hard ship's biscuit too. Like, it's not gonna be soft and fluffy to soak up all the moisture. She's gonna have to like go in there with her finger and lick it all out.
Hmm.
she also has enough self-awareness to like immediately realize what Kyle was right about, which says a lot about her character because if the roles were reversed, Kyle would just lean more heavily into like whatever he thought originally and like nothing is his fault.
Yeah.
And Althea, like, turns it around and, like, can recognize, okay, there are some things that he was right about, and I'm just gonna, like, work extra hard to try to better myself to get over those things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's something Wintrow has too. It takes him a little bit longer to get there, but they both have kind of a similar, like, okay, I'm gonna recognize what someone was right about and then change it instead of just, like, piling it and being an asshole to everybody.
Yeah, and also realizing I'm not who I thought I was. I have to work to become that person.
Mm-hmm.
Which like is hard because having like your self-image shattered like that, big blow to the ego. Um, but yeah, okay. Classically, we are jumping ahead. In this chapter,
Yeah.
Althea, I think she just goes to talk to Wintrow before Vivacia leaves and is like, "Hey, will you vouch for me if that you'll remember Kyle saying that he'll give me Vivacia if I have the vouch of a captain?" And Wintrow is like, "Yeah, okay, I guess, but this doesn't sound like a good idea." And Althea's like, "Okay, thanks, bye." Yeah, she then goes and does it
Goes to
like this.
her house too and does the same thing. She, like, wakes
Mm-hmm.
Ronica up in the night and is like, "Will you vouch for me?" And Ronica's like, "Sure, but I have to tell you a bunch of stuff." And Althea just leaves.
That scene made me so sad because Veronica's like about to sleep and she just like hears like mother or something, and she's like, "Yes, my dead plague babies."
Oh, yeah,
I
and
know
then
it
she's
hurts.
my children had visited, or they'd visited her like a bunch of times, so she thought nothing of it. And I was like, we're just skimming over ghosts like that?
I know. I loved it.
Well, was it like
I
ghosts or like just trauma TM?
I
probably
think it was Ghost.
trauma, but I love ghosts, so
Me
any hint
too.
And
of
I mean,
ghosts.
okay, we are reading a patented fantasy series, so.
Before we start talking all about all of that, there's one more thing about Wintrow in his section that I wanted to talk about. And it also talks about like the monks and everything. Just because I think that all of the monks in general are a little bit more hypocritical than like Wintrow views them as. But he was like talking about how he doesn't understand the like teasing and everything from the sailors and everything, and he thinks the younger boys teased and shoved one another when they first arrived, but the penchant for bullying or cruelty was swiftly returned to their parents. So that's talking about the kids who were sent to like the monasteries and stuff. I kind of disagree with the way that they handle the bullying child because, like, you would think that instead of rejecting the bullies and the kids who are cruel, they would accept them and teach them ways to like work through that. And like these are the kids who need the help from the monks the most, and they're the ones that get turned around and sent back to the place that like fostered this negativity in them and cruelty in them. And I'm sure that means that they are like not having a good home life. So you would think that the monks would accept them and help them even more. But they're like, we only want the easy children, the ones who are good. Like, that's
Yeah.
very holier than thou, and I hate that.
Even just like, even if they were like, okay, you are too mean spirited to be a priest, but like, why don't you live here instead of going back home so you can try to like unlearn this or something?
There are so many things that they could do, and they just turn their back on the children that probably needed them the most. And I hated that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that like there's like this tension in the priesthood between understanding humanity and trying to transcend it, and I think that this is one of the cases where like they choose the trying to transcend rather than just being like just people are going to be people. Let's work with that.
Yeah, it's so weird. That pissed me off.
Hmm.
And like judging kids in the first place. I thought that's not really something that they're supposed to be doing, and they do it all the time.
Hmm.
So those monks are annoying.
Judgmental, just like Wintrow.
No, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything.
It's nice like, to see
Wintrow
that
does
he's
better.
Yeah, he does. And he's getting better in this section that we read.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think that's all I had to talk about from Wintrow.
I had one more thing for Wintrow, where when he's talking to Vivacia, he says, "It is the nature of humans that we tend to pass our pain along, as if we could get rid of it by inflicting an equal hurt on someone else." And I'm like, I wonder who this reminds me of. Cough, can it? Cough.
Mm-hmm.
The both in terms of passing on his throwing all of his pain into a live ship and also inflicting countless horrors to try and run away from his past.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I had for Wintrow in this chapter. I guess the next thing is we kind of jumped around scenes here, but in the middle of, in between the Althea scenes, the Wintrow scene, and the Keffria scene, there's a scene with Ronica where she finally meets with a Rainwild trader who's come to accept essentially the monthly payment for the creation of the live ship. And Ronica is short, and the Rainwild trader is like, "Cool. If you have the money next time, we'll let you off the hook. Otherwise, we're going to yoink your child as the blood price for being unable to pay."
Before that, there's one more thing for Althea. It's actually about Vivacia, and she says it would be a shame if you went overboard and drowned right here on the dock. The live ship's peaceful rocking suddenly increased the tiniest of increments, and I was thinking about how like that could be a little bit of bolt coming out, but it also could be mild like influence on Vivacia, because in the section right before he talks about how Torg, like someone's gonna kill Torg and throw him overboard, and the next section Vivacia is threatening Torg to like knock him overboard. Like the ship herself is taking mild little words.
No, I didn't like put the pieces together that happens back to back, but I love that.
It just clicked with me while I was reading the notes. That's why I had to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally valid. Also, do we know how Torg dies?
Doesn't he get like a nail and someone dies from a head wound, and I'm just like assuming that it's everybody. But I think someone pushes him over the side, maybe.
I mean, I hope so, because that would be a neat little bit of foreshadowing.
I'm
This is
pretty sure there's like a huge fight. I think it's also during
The storm, yeah.
storm, and there's this huge fight between them, and I think Wintrow is involved. Or like Wintrow and Kenneth or something. It's really weird.
Is Torg the one that assaults the slave girl that has like her ankle rubbed raw from the shackles, and she like can't really talk because her mind is broken?
I would not doubt it one bit.
So I think maybe Wintrow like realizes he's doing that, and then when this fight happens, someone pushes him overboard or something. Somehow Torg dies, and it's great.
I feel like Wintrow also, I think Wintrow is involved because I think he also like rationalizes it, and he's like, well, there was clearly no hope for him. Like he proved himself to be this like negative, horrible person.
It's during the uprising when the slaves rise up, because one of them kills Gantry, and then Wintrow feels guilty about being on the slave side because like Gantry and Mild die, and they're like good guys, but also people like Torg die,
which is not a bad thing.
right? Yeah, The
Oh my god,
pieces.
we have so much. I'm so excited. We have like a ton left in these books.
There's
And
still
it's gonna
so much horrible stuff that gets to happen to these characters.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
I do feel bad for all of them, but I am so excited to like get through it all. It's
Mm.
gonna be good. I feel like all of this really horrible stuff doesn't hurt as badly as like everything that happened with Fitz. Just because it was like so concentrated and it was just him and we're experiencing it like one on one with him.
No one like fully dies.
Yeah.
No
And
one's
has to be
beaten.
revived. Yeah.
Right.
I,
I would say like of these characters, I think Althea probably has it the worst because she like thinks that everyone dies and everyone gaslights her about terrible stuff happening to her. And
yeah.
but Malta has it pretty bad too, but Malta could have been worse. Like
Definitely.
he manages to avoid some pretty bad stuff.
Yeah.
I think the way I feel about it is like I feel like lots of the stuff that happens in this series just feels like pointless to me, and that makes it just feels frustrating. Not pointless in the sense of like from a like writing perspective, but pointless in the sense of like bad things happen to people and we can't control it and it sucks. While like
Mhm.
in Fitz's books it feels like I can at least see like the through line and I can see like and like he like grows from it and like it and like stuff happens. Like I can understand like the cause, effect, and then consequence. Well, sometimes stuff just happens to people in the series and I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also are constantly getting the message from the Fool that like if things didn't happen a certain way, it
Everything
wouldn't have worked out.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, if chivalry like hadn't abandoned you, you would have died as a kid, or like all the bad stuff that happens, it's like, oh, this is because something worse could have happened. Whereas in this book, it's just like, yeah, shit sucks,
Hmm.
and there's no reason for it, you know?
Yeah.
Which is well, I'll have to see if this holds up, but I think that is kind of my biggest gripe with the trilogy as a whole. Is not even like the bad stuff happening, but just the idea that like in the end it doesn't feel like there's a message. It's just like stuff happens. Damn. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah, I think that it more is like the big picture and the dragons coming back and Tintaglia being released is really what is the meaning behind the book. So like all of the shitty things that happen to the characters like lead to Tintaglia.
Are in service
But
of
I
the
think that's
people.
the only like really big good thing that gets out probably.
Yeah.
Well, and they do all end up like it's not where they originally wanted to, but for the most part, they all get like a relatively happy ending.
Yeah.
Like Wintrow's happy with where he ends up. Althea and Brashen get Paragon and they're together, and Malta and Rain end up together. Like, it all works out for them, just not in the way that they initially were clinging to at the beginning.
Yeah.
I do like that aspect of it. It's like an inversion of a fairy tale. Or not
Right.
inversion, but like a twist on it. Anyway, speaking of fairy tales, honestly, I think that the Rainwell traders would be better perceived if they didn't have this weird ass blood price I will take your firstborn child thing going on. Like
Yeah.
and it's so weird because like after reading Rain Wilds and also like the latter half of this trilogy, it's like they're just normal people. They're just like and it's like in this series they're built up to be like such weirdos, such freaks, just like mysterious warlocks out in the woods doing their like dragon magic.
They're so mystical in this trilogy. And it is sad because, like, the reason they are seen as so mystical is literally just because if they didn't, like, only show up under cover of darkness and, like, only allow little lights and have their veils on and stuff, they'd get, like, harassed and accosted in Bingtown. But, like, it is funny when you reread it and you're like, yeah, these are just literally, like, regular people and they're all mystical. I'm like, if you can't pay me, I'll take your daughter.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny because like there's the whole thing is like the Rainwild people are like they are that way because of the influence of dragons or like the way that dragons used to live there. And I feel like that is a very dragon thing to do. Be like, pay me my gold or I will take your daughter. Yar.
Well, and they do really need, like, I think what she called it was like fresh or new blood or something, because if they're all like marrying each other, eventually you're gonna get down to like cousins and stuff, and so they need like
Yeah, it's
fresh
like
people.
they already got enough deformities going on. We don't need
Right.
like
It's not like they have people migrating to the Rainwilds like they're having a great time. Like they're very desperate for people, I think. And it makes you wonder, why would you even stay there in the first place?
I think it was basically like that is the only land we have and we're here now.
I think it also could be that like they don't like when they are in the Rainwilds, they're all like normal kind of to each other. But if they were to move anywhere else to try and get out of the Rainwild area and like find a better place for their family, they would all be seen as freaks. And so it's like kind of too late for them. So they want to have kids, but then you can't send your kids down the river by themselves. So it's kind of just this endless cycle of like, we're still stuck here.
And it's also, I think, none of them want to leave the. I don't remember what the name of the Elderling city there is, but yeah.
Trahog. Trahog.
I always call it Tree Hog.
Trehog.
Is that the name of the Elderling city or just the?
I think that's
the Elderling one is Kelsingra.
No, the one that's like under.
The one that right.
Do we get a name for it, or is it just sort of like the place where Tintaglia came from with the rooster
we
stuff?
might get a name. I think that Rain can like read the Elderling writing or something like that, and that they do have a name for it, but I just don't remember it.
I wish you just stopped there. Like Rain can read. He is literate.
Yes.
Unlike us, obviously. I think my last note for this chapter was just going back to Kyle and Keffria talking. Some choice quotes from that section. I sense a jealousy in you, dear, that she vies for my attention as well as the attentions of young men. And it's like, what is the comparison here? Why are you saying these in the same breath? This is some weirdo ass shit.
So fucking gross.
And also, like, let your daughter grow up and be both an ornament and a credit to you. And it's like, ayo?
I fucking hated that.
He's like, oh, it's not your fault that you're backward and stupid. And you're jealous of your 12-year-old.
I know.
He actually says backwards. Like, I couldn't, but like, I could see, like, unironically calling, like, your partner shy. But how do you, without a trace of, like, self-awareness, call someone backwards and not think they're gonna hate you?
Right.
No, what the actual
like
fuck?
he genuinely thinks that Keffria is just so stupid that she just like won't understand or care. But yeah, I think that was my last note for this chapter.
Yeah, I don't have any other notes for this one.
I think that I had a couple. Oh no, I was just proud that fucking Keffria finally started waking up to stupid ass Kyle. And she said he was just a man like any other man. No, he was stupider the most. I loved that. Fucking finally. This is what I've been waiting for. Stupid hoe bitch.
And it feels so abrupt after she was like, Kyle knows best.
I know, it was really annoying.
It does feel really abrupt, especially considering she stood by him when he fucking punched out her son. Like, I just can't get over that.
Yeah, and she just cried over him. That pissed me off.
Yeah. You were, like, revved up against Keffria.
I
So,
hated her. I hated her more than Kyle and Kenneth at that section. I
yeah.
thought she was the actual worst. I remember, like, now that I realized that she was groomed, like, I understand why she acted the way she did, but it still pissed me off, like, a lot.
Yeah.
It's not excusable, but it's understandable.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also think that it is fitting that we have, like, the section with Keffria is, like, squished in between two sections with Ronica. And the first section of Ronica is her like worrying about how Keffria would handle the Rainwild visitors and how she would just like she Ronica realized that she would just hand it off to Kyle and Kyle would fuck everything up. And then we have Keffria and Keffria awakens to how shitty Kyle is. And then we go back to Ronica. And I think that that's kind of fitting.
Yeah, ever since I don't remember uh, which of you pointed it out, but like ever since one of y'all pointed out that like the point of view ordering like matters or like has like meaning, I've just been like eagle eyeing that every chapter it comes up.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
wild how much
I did not realize that.
it's so wild how much it plays into it. It's kind of like every time I read it, I will find something different in each section that like connects to another one. And I just love that.
Oh, okay, wait. Actually, I have one more note, but it's actually your note, Alex, and I'm stealing it because it's a quote that I liked.
That's
Um,
fine.
All those years she had been married to a fantasy, not a real person. She had imagined a husband to herself, a tender, loving, laughing man who only stayed away so many months because he must, and she had put Kyle's face on her creation. And I feel like this one is like there's all the stuff about her realizing Kyle's a bad person, but I think this one was like uniquely like relatable or poignant because like I feel like we've all done this at one time or another where there's someone that we care about, and even as they either they started out as a bad person or they grow into someone different, but you have like this image of their best traits or this idea of them, and you see, and your image of them is the idea, not who they actually are.
Yeah. I think we all do this to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. It's especially easy to do with significant others.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Do we have anything else for this chapter?
I don't.
Me
Okay.
neither.
So let's move into autumn. Chapter 16, New Roles, aka the 50-page long chapter.
This was so long, but I have very few notes for it.
Yeah, I didn't really have any notes because most of it was just like monotony of Althea being on the hunting boat and skinning seals.
It's Althea turning her brain off so she doesn't have to realize like all the shitty things she's going through at the moment.
Yeah, I did notice though there was a whole part about like where she stayed with Amber and Amber taught her how to be a boy, like how to walk like a man and how to um like change out her clothes when she had her period so no one would notice. And it was like obviously the fool is adept at being gender fluid and mastering how to move like each gender and stuff, but there's a lot that they know specifically about how to pretend to be male, which I thought was interesting.
I know. I noticed that too. I was like, wow, what the heck?
The detail.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Amber, the first quote that I have is from Althea thinking, and she's like, now it seemed to her that perhaps Amber had actually been intent on propelling her into danger. And I'm like, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They
Or
have a
like,
habit.
yeah, I'm just pushing everyone into the danger themselves. They're like, you can do this.
Like, oh, you're my catalyst? How would you like despair?
Pain and suffering.
If those sound right for you, call today.
Right?
I remember on my first read of this book when Althea like almost gets swept overboard in the storm and someone saves her and then it's Brashen. I remember being like, oh my god, they're on the same ship. Like,
I just didn't know why she, like, did she know immediately that it was him? Because she had to have recognized his voice, right? So I just wasn't sure why she didn't say it was Brashen and like, ugh, like I can't believe Brashen's saving my life again.
I think she was
I don't
probably
think she
disoriented. She was just
noticed
swept
it.
overboard. She had water in
That's
her
true.
ears.
And
That's
he
true.
was like yelling at her because he thought that she was the
Yeah,
ship's.
I bet she'd never really heard that, or at least gotten the full force of that from Brashen before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right, that's fine.
Anyways, I love how, like, in most other contexts, like Brashen saving Althea, it would be like crazy romantic, and it would be like, or just like, you saved me. But but because of like how it happens, it's just like Brashen's like, oh my fucking god, you idiot, and Althea's like, what was I supposed to do? It's just,
Yeah.
it's just like, come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at least for me, I talked about all the Althea stuff I wanted to talk about when we were discussing it last chapter, basically.
I think I have two little things left, but that's it. The first one was, I think this is a quote from Althea, but I don't know because I didn't write it down. But somebody says, I mean, do you think Vivacia would welcome strangers aboard her and accept them running her? Not much. And I'm like, just thinking to myself, yeah, she already has with Kyle and the like willy nilly crew that he picked and is having run her right now. So she's already done it and she's going to have to do it again.
Hmm. I think it's like, yeah, it's like the difference between like accepting as in like, yeah, I like this versus, well, I guess I gotta do this, but it's still like, either way, she's accepting it. She's not throwing them overboard.
And she literally accepts strangers coming aboard her and running her when Kenneth takes over. So,
Hmm.
like, this is looking back at Kyle and also foreshadowing for Kenneth.
Hmm.
The foreshadowing that Kenneth's gonna take over is like really heavy because they go back and forth between like Kenneth searching for a live ship and Vivacia being unhappy
Mm-hmm.
and miserable. So it's like
Yeah.
you could see it coming from a mile away, and that's probably intentional because if like we as readers can see it coming from a mile away, any Bingtown trader worth their stock would be able to see it coming from a mile away if they would have had somebody on the ship that knew anything. But like the only family member, the only trader they have is Wintrow, and
Yeah.
Wintrow wasn't raised in that environment, so he doesn't know. And he can't do anything about the way that Kyle's using Vivacia. So it just like further shows how blind Kyle is.
And speaking of like how
And
Kyle uses Vivacia, like even mild in this section is like, yeah, pirates have been going after slavers. They'll save us some trouble. And it's like, anyways, let's get some slaves on us. And it's like, oh
right.
my god.
Yep.
I feel like they all think that Vivacia being a live ship is protection enough from all of these things. And it's very much not.
I mean, it's because no one's ever captured a live ship in history, so I don't blame them.
I feel like though it's more like their belief in live ships like in general is like what makes them feel protected, but also half the crew are like scared or like kind of disgusted by Vivacia, I think.
Hmm.
Like they make little signs to like ward off evil when she talks to them or when she like does something.
Hmm.
They don't understand her at all.
Yeah. I feel like even Mild doesn't. And you would think that him being aboard her with Ephron, he would understand a little bit more, but I don't think that he really does.
No.
And I think that that's probably partially because I'm sure this is his first live ship that he's been on, and the whole time that Ephron was sailing, she hadn't been quickened. So, like, none of them really knew what to expect from that.
Speaking
I
of
think
when Kyle takes over, it is really funny that Comfrey rubs the inside of his mug with his dick.
I
I
loved
love
that.
I loved that.
I thought that was really good.
Mm-hmm. And I love that this is when Wintrow gets a sense of humor.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But then he like feels bad about laughing about it later, and it's like, oh my god, just get over it. It's fine. Kyle sucks anyways.
I like that that's like the first little bit of connection between some of the sailors, and especially Mild and Wintrow, that we get to see too.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and I feel like after that joke where he realizes like the things that the people do aren't for harm, like it's as like a bonding thing almost, that helps him like be more accepting and be more open to the jests that the rest of the sailors have, and it makes him much more comfortable around them and make them almost accept him until the incident.
And yeah, actually this makes me think, going back to when the priests were removing people who were bullying people, like it it could be that they just like overjudged and like took any sort of teasing or like that kind of thing as
Yeah.
bullying, and then like that's why Wintrow's like just completely deprived of this experience of how do I joke with friend.
Yeah, they could have been too sensitive about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about that.
I think my only other note for this chapter is about the dragon, like the rock that's called the dragon.
Right.
Um, I was wondering if it was a stone dragon, and if so, if it was like one of the six duchies ones, or if it was something made like way before, and then the water just like got to the point where it was submerged. Because it has an arrow, or like the story is that it got taken down by an arrow, right? Which is what happens to. That's how Swift kills the stone dragon the white lady makes, right?
Mm-hmm. Shoots it in the eye.
Right. So, yeah.
I didn't even realize that stone dragons could be killed. Like, I must have just forgotten all of that stuff. I think Tawny Man is like this distant memory of mine. Like, I don't recall any of Tawny Man aside from like The Fool and Night Eyes Die. So I forgot that stone dragons could die because I was like, what is this? Like a fossilized dragon or something? What's going on? It's a stone dragon.
Well, it could also just be a rock. So,
I
mean,
don't think so
I don't
because
think it is, though.
I feel
they
like they talk
there's,
about
like,
it
a
later,
second
right?
grabbing the arrow or something.
I'm like,
comes
I think
a lot.
I feel
or
like I feel like we get like some confirmation of what it like. I feel like when they're on Paragon, they like sail past or something, and Amber's like says something cryptic about it. Maybe not, but like I feel like there's
we'll
like
have to look out for it.
yeah, I feel like I would be like I would have remembered this way more going into like Rain Wilds or whatever, like trying to find an explanation for it if it wasn't explained somewhere here, or I just forgot it. I don't know, because this is like such a big like glowing neon sign of like dragon, dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that like there's some situation with Rain where he's on this Like, I think, like, Tintaglia brings him to this island because there's a lot of, like, meat or something, and he sees the stone dragon or something like that. I can't remember,
That
though.
sounds
That
that sounds
stands.
familiar.
Yeah, like she's like super hungry. They
Yeah.
because where do they fly to? Are they're just looking for Malta? Like Malta like
Yeah.
skills a message to Rain somehow, and he's like, we got to go looking for her, and I don't know exactly where she is, but I know she's like somewhere here.
Something happens. I can't remember. I thought that, like, Tintaglia was injured, and that's how they ended up together in the first place, and she's just, like, flying him somewhere. I can't remember.
Hmm. I remember it's like Malta gets like kidnapped by the satrap, or not satrap. She's with the satrap. They get kidnapped by the Chalcedians. She like sleeps and like she thinks she's gonna die or something. So she like manages to skill a message to Rain because everyone already thinks she's dead, and Rain is just like crazy with like we gotta go save her, and basically is like Tintaglia. I she freed you. You gotta come help me, homie. We're gonna scour the seas for her.
I think you're right.
Mhm. She might have also gotten injured at some point, but yeah, I just don't remember. But yeah, so who wants to talk about the last part of this chapter?
My only note is I feel so bad for Wintrow, and he just has one shit time after another on Crust, and it just gets worse from here.
Hmm. I that last scene has me so mad. Like, okay, the start of it are like whatever, fine. He should have listened to the other sailors. He shouldn't have like gone into town without a buddy system. Whatever. The bear fighting thing though. Oh my god. Winter was like, guys, it's rigged. The and they're like, yeah, it's rigged. That's why you should let us fight the bear again. Winter, go fight the bear.
I know,
You
what
won't
the
fight the
hell?
bear, you fucking pussy. That's why Mild got hurt. And it's like, this
Yeah.
is like the toxicest toxic masculinity I've ever seen. Just
I felt so bad for the bear too. I was like, if Fitz was here, this would never stand.
Uh-huh.
oh
I was
yeah,
thinking the same thing. I felt so bad. Because you know that bear gets, like, abused or something.
Yeah,
because
it
they even
reminded
mention
me of
like
the fighting rings that Regal had.
Mhm.
Same.
Like Winter even says like the trainer must have been doing something to irritate the bear before he sends
The
it out to
whole
fight Mild.
Yep.
I think this is also the first section that we see Sinden in. And then we also see it in the next chapter as well.
Hmm.
And it starts to play a bigger role in everything.
Yeah. Because Miles high, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels weird that that's like the first time we've heard of Sinden.
I know, right? It seems like it should have shown up sooner, but it doesn't.
And
I
it's
think
like
it's
such
like
a Brashen thing in my mind.
Same.
I think it's like mentioned in passing at an earlier point, but like just that it's not allowed on the ship or something like that.
Mhm.
I
No
think
one,
you're right. But
no
I
one's
think it wasn't
on
even
it.
mentioned by name, maybe. But it's one of those things where, like, Efren didn't. Oh, no, I think it was Kenneth. Like, one of them didn't allow anyone to even come back to the ship drunk or high. And they had to, like, sleep it off and then come back.
I think it might have been Efren because I think Brashen was thinking about it when he was on Paragon, but I might be mistaken. This might just be
No, I think
another
you're right.
like I associate Brashen with Sinden, so I think it's him. But yeah.
I think that you're right, though.
But yeah, my final note for the chapter is just Winter deserves better. They
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
because he
fucking
freaking does.
Yeah. He does.
He deserves better shipmates. He deserves better parents.
Mhm. I can't believe that like the reason they get on his ass is because he didn't fight a bear. It's
I
a
know.
bear.
Fuck.
Like,
But it's
are the bears in Bingtown just weaker than the bears we know of? Because like,
They're just
yeah.
all drunk and stupid.
Yeah.
And Wintrow was
And
literally the whole
Portland
time like,
stable.
why would I fight a bear? I'm a person.
which was like, I'm going back to the ship. Meanwhile, Mild is like, he's got that like high strength and is just like crushing Wintrow's wrist.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We good to move to the next chapter?
Yes.
Okay. Chapter 17, Kennet's Horror. So Kennet is back in Divvy Town after a very successful spate of pirating. Um, there was the original ship that he stole, the slaver ship that he got from Astray or whatever the name of the place was, but
Askew?
Askew, that's it. And in the meantime, he has uh, captured 3 more ships, and I think it was like raided 7 others or something. So like he's really on a successful streak. And news of his ambitions to become Pirate King have followed him home, or followed him back to port.
Um, for as despicable as Kennet is, I was very impressed with his skills of observation because the second he enters Bethel's house, he knows that something's up.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of Shade. Like the way that Shade can immediately detect, and sometimes Fitz can do it. If Fitz is like on his game, he can do it, but if Fitz is thinking too hard about it, then he's a clueless idiot.
Yeah.
But I was very impressed that he like right off the bat knew, and then he ends up taking out like
6 people.
yeah, basically Etta helps him with like the last 2, but he takes out everyone else by himself pretty much.
I think that Kenneth is so fucking funny in this chapter. I think that he is hilarious. As much as I hate Kenneth, I have to give it to him. He's fucking funny sometimes.
Yeah, he is funny sometimes.
Like, he cracked me up a couple times.
I love how like all I feel because I also like had a note where I'm like, man, I don't like Kenneth, but that man sure can fight. Like all 3 of us had notes where it's like, Kenneth sucks. However,
We have to give it to him in some form or another.
You have to give credit where credit is due. He's good at observing and fighting, and he has funny thoughts sometimes.
Yeah. The first quote that I have is Kenneth saying to, I think himself, whores make it all so much simpler. And it's kind of funny that he starts off this chapter thinking that, and then ends up taking Etta back to his ship at the end of this. And he's like, now I'm stuck with a woman.
He basically spends the entire time that she's on board being annoyed with her.
Yeah.
Like,
meanwhile, Edda's like, wow, you're so cool, Kenneth. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Giving me the opportunity to read and live my own life. And Kenneth's like, you're inconvenient. I don't like you.
Get out of my space. I need my own room.
That's like the funny where he's like,
as long as you have to be on my ship, can you please just like take a bath?
Yeah.
yeah, my favorite part is like Kenneth being everyone the first time they have to live with a roommate. Just like, I have no privacy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like sit here and think over my charts.
Like, it is the continuous thread of like Kenneth being awful and everyone exalting him gets annoying through this book because everyone thinks he's like the bee's knees and he's really awful. So, anyways, what I was saying before Craig was a dick. It's annoying, but I understand specifically why Etta feels the way she feels about him because to her, he's like rescued her from living in this poorhouse that she obviously like didn't really want to live in,
Mm-hmm.
and then like gives her a life where she doesn't have to do that, and she's supported, and she can just like be on her own ship doing whatever. And then Wintrow like teaches her how to read and stuff. Like he gives her a life and opportunity that she never would have been able to have.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's just because we're in his head, we know he does not, he did not want to do any of that.
Right. It's all like coincidence or happenstance, or like he does it very regretfully. Like he doesn't want her to be on the ship, but he's like, I can't. I need to make sure that no one perceives that I have a weakness. Even though he doesn't care about her, he just doesn't want people to think that he could care about her.
Well,
be
I mean, I think it's
that's
more at that point. Like people know that he cares about her. He just doesn't want them to be able to get at him through her, like they did tonight. Like if she's on my ship, then like I'm safe.
I kind of wonder why he doesn't just kill her.
Honestly,
I think
Move her from the equation.
I think that the reason he doesn't form a connection with her, like a deeper connection, is because he's like forged. And I think that he could have like started to care for her more if he wasn't. And maybe there's like something deep within him that like,
Cares a little bit.
yeah, and that's why he's like he won't admit it to himself, so he doesn't admit it to us, and he like writes off taking her in only as I need to like perceive this, like I need to give off this air of strength, and she's like the weakest point right now, and she's a vulnerability.
mm. Like there's a line where it's like it was meant to distract him and it almost worked. It was distressing. No, it angered him. And this read to me as like him feeling something and then the forged part coming in and being like, feeling stuff? You
Yeah,
can't do that. Away with
definitely.
you.
I took it as a way to like almost trick the reader, because that first line, it was distressing, no, it angered him. You like think, oh, he like actually cares about something. And then he's like, this clean and pleasant chamber, the comparative safety of Bethel's house had been taken away. He'd never be able to relax in this room again. And it's like you think that you're finally seeing a glimpse of humanity, and then he's just like, now I can't relax in here.
Well, I think also we're seeing like the trauma that Kenneth had. Like he felt safe here, and now that it's been threatened, he like doesn't have that safe space anymore, and he like needs that in order to be able to like relax and like open up a little bit and enjoy himself.
Like
Mm-hmm.
last time he was here with Etta, it was all about like feeling in control. At a
Hmm.
time when he was feeling like helpless or whatever. So, yeah. The, I think it could be both. It could be like tricking the reader and also being like Kenneth tricking himself a little bit. Like it's it's like he doesn't actually have that humanity in him anymore. But the reason for that is because he subsumes it every time it threatens to come up. So,
Right. I think that was all I had for this chapter.
mhm.
I have a couple more. I just had to laugh at this one. And it was saying to himself, having begun talking to himself, it now seemed he could not stop. Perhaps it was a side effect of random philanthropy. And I was just cracking up. I thought that was so funny.
Mhm.
And then my last one is I think that it's so interesting that both Kenneth and Etta are continually described as like cat like or very feline. I think that is really cool.
Mhm.
And something that I want to like track throughout the books too.
Yeah, I wonder if that comes up, especially when there's the conflict between Etta and Bolt for Kenneth's affections. Like, because dragons are supposed to be very cat-like, I wonder if there's something there in terms of how they would do that. But yeah. Also, like this is every chapter of this section, like something big happens. Like there's the whole like fight at Bettel's house. The the next chapter is like Malta going to the ball. The the previous chapter we had like the bear fighting or not, and then the chapter 19 we have like Wintrow's finger getting chopped off. Like now that things have gotten started, they're like really going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very fast. It speeds up so much
Mm-hmm.
now, I think, after the like million pages of just kind of sitting around and booping back and forth between annoyances.
Yeah, just like Kyle. And now it's like we only get to do that like 25% of the time.
Yeah. I haven't even made a farty mouth sound because of Kyle yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, we get to do that at the end of the section.
Yeah.
He just hasn't been around. Or actually,
Yeah.
we could do it at the start of the next chapter, Malta,
Yeah. Oh my
because
fuck.
in this chapter, Malta ends up going to what ball is it? Like the summer ball or some ball?
I think
It,
for
Harvest
fall
Fest.
harvest, yeah.
oh yeah, the heart. Like, yeah, it's um, and she's not supposed to go because Ronica and Keffria are both like, Ephron died. Let's show some respect. Also, you're super young and not ready to be presenting yourself, because you aren't like world wise yet. But the goddamn it, Kyle left her with 4 gold pieces to make a dress, so she's gonna figure it out and go there herself. Mm-hmm. See, I think I think that warrants a farty mouth sound for Kyle.
Malta
He sucks.
is definitely still annoying on a reread, but I'm less annoyed with her than I was on my first read because I feel like now I can appreciate a little bit more that she is literally just a product of her environment. Like she is screaming for somebody to like engage her and treat her as like the smart young person that she is, and they're just continuously babying her and trying to control her. It's like only natural that she would rebel, especially when she has her father on this pedestal because of like the way her mother exalts him, and then he is going against and like giving her money and indulging her. It's like there's no with that combination there's no other way that Malta would act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
And it's like it feels like Ronica and Keffria are like they're just looking at the end result, which is her behavior, and not understanding that like she's acting like that because of like these societal forces or the fact that like her friend like she even tells her mom like Dello Trell gets to go to this thing with, and it's like okay, and like understand how like where Malta's motivations are coming from, and they just don't engage with that at all. They're just like you are a stupid child, and it's like yes, she is a stupid child, but she is also like a stupid child who has a personality and motivations and friends and all of these things that like contribute to this behavior.
And the frustrating part about it is they don't explain to her why they're so upset and why, like, all of this is like such a big deal. Like, they don't sit her down and say, the way that you're dressed right now is like, Ronica tries to, but she does it out of anger. And I think that if she did it and like sat Malta down and tried to explain to her and make her understand, it would have been so much better. But they still treat her like a child who
They
doesn't
just say
know.
that she looks like a whore, and they don't like,
Yeah,
which is like,
and that's not like
yeah, it should be more like this is dangerous. You like,
there are
it's
a lot
demeaning
of
to yourself, and it will attract attention from predatory people.
yeah.
If they explained it to her like an adult, then I think they would have gotten a different response. Because the problem is like, it's like that kid at school that's really naughty, but it's because they're too smart and they like are bored by the subject material.
Mm-hmm.
That's like Malta, but in her entire life.
Yeah, like when she was like, for the last year while grandfather was dying, the house had been the most boring place on earth, which, like,
Understandable.
yeah, but also like psychopath line, like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it really reminded me actually of from Avatar: The Last Airbender, um, when Azula's like, "Grandpa's gonna die soon. Maybe someone should just like take his place."
Yes.
It's just like,
I think though with Malta, because Efren is always gone, she didn't grow up really knowing him or being close to him. The only times when he would come back, he would spend most of his time with Ronica, shut in their bedroom, like doing all the things they missed. And he barely got to bond with any of them. I think that if Wintrow was still there, he would be the one that would remember Efren the most. But even then, like, it's just these short periodic visits. So it's not like she really got to develop a strong connection with him, which kind of makes it weird that she names her son Fran after him. But, you know.
you know,
Yeah, I also thought that was weird in Rain Wilds, but
I think it was
I
more to
think
just like
this.
honor the like not memory,
Memory.
but like honor the fact that he built up this family, I guess. Which
I
like,
also think.
weird, but yeah.
I also think maybe somebody got their wires crossed when they were writing that one because there are several times in Rain Wilds where it was
Malta is described as like Althea's sister.
yes, and like Ronica's daughter. So
Yeah, Keffria just gets like tossed to the wayside. Somebody should have read Live Ships before they edited that book.
yeah,
The same
it's
thing happens in
distracting.
Tawny Man, which is why I was confused for a long time when reading Live Ships for the first time, because Malta is described as Aldea's sister.
I think that it also could be like switching publishers because I think that Hobb has switched publishers a couple of times, and that also, like, I'm sure the editors don't have time to reread all the books. So if
Right.
she got confused a little bit, then the editor wouldn't know any better to switch it.
Because it would make more sense for Malta to name her child Fran if Efren was her father.
Mhm. Instead of fucking Boyo. Could Boyo have just been Efren? Please.
Wait, who is Boyo?
I,
Althea Gratian's son.
Oh yeah,
I
we talked
hate
about this.
I hate Boyo's name so much.
I can't believe it's his real name.
And we just all pretend that Boyo has a different name.
I mean, I straight
He's
we had
on
we had like an hour long conversation about this last time, and I completely forgot it. So I'm already doing my best. I'm doing my best to.
Okay, Boyo's new name is Gone, like Paragon.
God.
Because he
That's
named him
better.
after himself. That's what we're
Oh
doing.
my god.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna I'm just gonna imagine him looking like there's
Fifth?
this there's this anime called Hunter x Hunter, and the main character is called Gon. So I'm just gonna imagine
Dang.
just like a tiny version of him walking around.
The thing that I have a problem with is like, what happens when Boyo becomes a man? Like, do they change
Mano.
it to Mano? Like, I don't think any of it makes sense.
No, it's
It
the
does
worst
not make
name.
sense.
Is it even
Boyo?
spelled Boyo? Is it spelled Boyo?
No, it's
I'm
spelled
pretty sure, isn't there like an
dash
exclamation point? There's, I feel like every time there's an exclamation point, like that's attached onto his name.
His name does not have an exclamation point.
I feel like it should at this point.
It's BOY-O.
So
It's,
fucking weird.
it's the worst name in this entire series.
Revoking
I don't
parental
know.
rights for Brashen and Althea. You know how like
Yeah.
you know how like it's illegal to like name kids Pikachu in Japan? They should have the same thing in like Bingtown.
It's illegal to have your live ships name your kids.
Oh, did Paragon name?
Yes, they let
Paragon!
him use their child's name, and they were like, "This reads, let's do it."
Oh my-
Paragon, who they've like had to call back from madness several times, and who has like 17 different personalities, and is constantly like, they're constantly like, "Don't upset Paragon, or he might flip over and kill us all."
Yeah.
No, but he's okay. By that point in the series, he's a friend. We like Paragon. We stand Paragon.
But he is not capable of naming a child.
Even in the last trilogy, when they ride Paragon, they all like only, or when maybe it's in Rain Wilds, like Elise is on Paragon or something. They're all like, "Did you upset Paragon?" Like they're all kind of tiptoeing around him.
Hmm.
Like he's a friend, but he's still like,
He's still an unstable friend,
yes,
but a friend nonetheless.
Yeah, I do remember Elise like doing something to annoy Paragon.
there's something to upset him, yeah. And then Althea's like, "Did you upset the ship?"
Hmm. But I feel like the way they said it is more like, oh, oh, poor uncle is sulking again, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think that they're concerned that he's gonna like pull a Paragon and flip the ship or anything.
Poor
But I'm
Paragon.
sure like Paragon at that point is family to them, so it would be like, don't upset my family, you stranger.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Back to Malta
Back to
because
Malta.
we're in her chapter.
Hmm.
I would love to see how she really looked when she got herself ready, because like if I think about a child getting access to makeup for the first time and like trying to do their own makeup and then like getting themselves ready, like I bet she looked hilarious. Like I bet she looked so ridiculous.
And like outlining the like tips
Yeah,
of her ears and her earlobes with like
it's like the
lips.
same
I
color as the lipstick.
I think that like putting it on and then like blending it out so that it was a light like blushy color would have been cute, but I'm pretty sure she just like painted red on her ears and I'm like that must look so fucking weird.
I'm gonna do that for our live show. Wear my makeup big town style.
Well, actually, it's Jamila style. She just
Oh
stole.
yeah,
Jamila whore style.
Hmm.
Yep.
I think that the like innocence of Malta really shows when she is talking to the first dressmaker, and the dressmaker's like, "Oh, like you'll look like a trollop if I do all of the stuff that you want." And she is like, she shakes her head and she tries to recall what a trollop flower looks like.
Yeah, that part had me
And like,
dying. I
a
had it highlighted
not
from my previous read. Like, oh god. Like I had I think I have one page in this entire book bookmarked, and it's just that and that line highlighted.
for Malta. But I think it really shows that like she is still a child and she doesn't understand, and she's very innocent with all
Yeah,
these
it's like
things.
when you're a kid and you see people in like tabloids dressed a certain way and you're like, I'm gonna dress like that, and you don't understand that they're adults and you're not.
Yeah.
And then like most reasonable parents explain like those are adults and you are not. And Ronica and Keffria are just like, no.
Yeah, instead Keffria is just like, but too much curiosity and eagerness. Well, it could lead you down the same path as your aunt Althea, and it's like,
Yeah, Althea who like got assaulted, and then Keffria was like victim blaming her.
hmm. And Malta doesn't even know that. She's just like, what do you mean?
No,
I'm gonna just become like, I think I know Aunt Althea is annoying, but like
but she just
whatever,
like
whatever,
ship and
mom.
does whatever she wants. Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
she doesn't offer her any explanation or any logic.
I really notice the parallels in parenting style that Wintrow or that Kyle has for Wintrow and Keffria has for Malta. It seems like they're both very shitty parents to those children. And like Keffria is actually cruel to Malta. Like she says at the beginning of this chapter, your father's not here, she had pointed out coldly, I am. Like, and she had never spoken to Malta like that before. Like, it takes Malta aback. And it's just like, do not take your anger and frustration out on, like, about your husband out on your child. Like, that is not the way to react. And I think that Kyle might have been right that there's like some tension and like jealousy or some weird stuff going on with Keffria when it comes to Malta because like she should not like that's still your baby. Why are you acting like that towards her? And like becoming an enemy of hers. Like supposed to
They
support
alienate each other. Like all the women in that family alienate each other really bad.
I know.
And then they have to
I do
like, and then
not
when
like
big
the way
towns, it takes the literal city falling apart for them to be like, okay, we have to come together as a family now.
Yeah.
I just do not like the way that Keffria does any of that. I think that she had no right to act that way and snap at Malta like that because Malta is still a child and she needs to like teach and guide her and she's like not. She's being petty and like weird and I just don't like any of that.
I don't know if I buy the like jealousy thing, but I think that there's definitely an element of like, I need to be exerting the control that I didn't feel I had while your father was here, type thing.
Yeah, there's something weird going on and I just don't like even in the sections before when Malta comes in and is talking to Kyle, Keffria gets mad and she's like, I'm going to like make her pay. I'm going to punish her and makes her do all the embroidery. Like she's like, you need to finish your embroidery for the whole, like by the end of the day. And like,
Well,
It's
I
not
think
Malta's fault that
yeah.
Kyle is
he
putting.
takes everything out on Malta.
Well, I think
Yeah,
it's honestly
Kyle's
because Malta
putting.
reminds her of Kyle because like she's Kyle's favorite child, and
I think
and
it's
Kyle,
because
whenever she wants to get something, Kyle, she just like bypasses her mom and goes to Kyle because she knows that Kyle has the power. I think that kind of makes her maybe not like jealous, but it makes her like ashamed that her daughter realizes that she doesn't have any power or influence.
Yeah.
it makes
Well,
her feel like she's out of control and she needs some semblance of it.
she. Well, it's dumb because Kyle's like pitting them against each other intentionally.
And it works.
And it works. And it's like dumb that it works because Keffria is an adult and it shouldn't. Like, obviously, it's going to work on the kid because she's a kid. But Keffria's a grown up. Like, that shouldn't work on a grown up.
Yeah, but
I mean,
Keffria is what Malta would have grown up into. So I think that's why it works on her. If Keffria had like been raised differently or like something,
I think
it
it's
wouldn't
also
have worked. If she was any other adult, I don't think it would have worked.
we talked about like her being groomed before, and I think that Kyle deliberately tried to make her into someone who is like subservient, essentially. So
And Kyle is pitting them against each other so that Malta will feel a loyalty and like affection for him only. So that she will only listen to him and will always take his side. So if something happens where the family is divided, he doesn't have to worry about her siding with Keffria.
mhm. Yeah, okay. Honestly, for Kyle accusing Keffria of being jealous of Malta, you know that if like Malta like was dating someone while Kyle was there, Kyle would be the type to like try to like punch out like her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And Keffria would probably be one of those like weird mother-in-laws that are obsessed with their son if someone tried to date Wintrow.
Yes.
She didn't I say she would be the one to wear a wedding dress to the wedding?
Yes, you did. You're right.
You would.
Uh,
You would, you guys.
mhm.
Exactly right. It's kind of a miracle that Selden turns out as well as he does, but that's probably because the Rain Wild traders raise him.
It's,
Yeah.
because, no, it's
Live
also
with
because
them as a
no one
ward or
gives a
something.
shit about Selden. Like at this point, no one's raising Selden. Selden's like no one in the family is like look. Selden could literally have like walked out of the house and died. Like
Zelda could have been kidnapped and no one would have noticed for like days. They'd be like, it's quieter in here.
Selden does get kidnapped later on.
Yeah.
Goes and lives with the Rain's
Does he
family.
live with? Yeah, I was gonna say, does he live with Malta in Rain then? I think it does. It happen after that, or does he get taken as like the blood sacrifice or whatever?
I think they both go together.
Mhm.
Because Selden is the one that shows her how to get into the city.
Mhm.
And it collapses on her because him and his friends go play in there.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
in
Do
this
you have to go,
chapter. Oh,
Alex?
sorry, go ahead.
I do. I have one more thing. We can finish this chapter, I think, but I do have one more thing. I think that it's so much easier. Like, I don't even find Malta really that annoying this time because
I
I
don't know.
can see everything from her side and I'm not even annoyed. I'm like, all the people are letting her down and not helping her. So it's
I'm
not even like
annoyed.
I hate Malta. It's like I feel so bad for Malta.
This go round, I'm annoyed at like the adults more than I'm annoyed
Same.
at her.
Same.
Yep.
I hope that everyone gets to reread these books and they realize that like Malta's actually not that bad. And she does get worse later on with like being disobedient and stuff, but like I wonder if we're gonna read that differently too.
I'm sure we will, especially like I know I will because I will understand that her and Rain are endgame,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that'll be better for me.
yeah. I wonder how I'll view because I remember the first time I was like really annoyed by her like creating this love triangle with Serwyn and Rain, but I
Oh,
wonder if I'll read that differently this time.
Also, I forgot that Dello and them were Trells. Like I read the last name and didn't link it to Brashen. Like this whole chapter, and then I went back and was like, "Oh shit! Like that's Brashen's family."
Oh yeah, and like Brad
Della.
Brashen is like, oh, my younger brother Serwyn's gonna inherit the fortune. He says that like a bunch of times, yeah. And I didn't
Hmm.
like put it together that it's the same Serwyn.
Same.
Dello also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but like the whole reason Malta wants to get a dress is because she thinks that Dello gets to get a dress.
And
And
she
Dello
does.
lied. Like Dello thought that Malta wasn't going to go to the ball, so she wouldn't know what Dello wore. So Dello was like, I get to wear a gown. And then Dello shows up in like a kid dress,
And
obviously.
poor Malta is dressed
And
like
that's like,
a prostitute and doesn't even know that she should be embarrassed with her outfit.
It's
right,
it's
right.
yeah. This chapter is just like a
And
vicious takedown of like just culture and society encouraging like young girls to aspire to like womanhood slash sexuality before they actually know what any of that means.
yeah,
Yep. That's all I have for this chapter.
me too.
My I just had a thing where there's in addition to all of that, there's also a thing where like uh, Malta's like, it was only too funny, of course, that a slave should know such things. Dello and Malta giggled about it often in the brief times they had together. And it's like, this is what growing up in a society where slavery is normalized does to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I read this chapter, I was just like cringing and like, oh, Malta, you suck. And the second time through, it's like, this chapter's just going through and like categorizing how Big Town as a society is just really, really, really shit on multiple angles.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't understand why like Ronica doesn't start paying Rach. Like she could just make her not a slave, but she chooses to continue to like have her serve as a slave instead of just a servant.
It's funny
I don't
because
think
she
she
was
can
like,
afford to pay her.
What'd you say, Leah?
I don't think she can afford to pay her.
She could do something. She could say like you're free
Literally, like,
to do whatever
let
you
her
want.
free. Yeah,
Yeah,
she could be like, you're free now. Yeah.
so
she like
weird.
gets on Devad's ass for being like, oh, Devad is like too scared to do whatever. But Veronica, you're not doing anything either.
I know it's
Veronica's
so
just as
weird.
bad as Devad.
Oh, actually, speaking of Devad, I think that Devad has like like lots of serious fucked up flaws, but I think that what makes him interesting is that he thinks that he's someone who wants to do the right thing, but is too weak in the sense of like he has no impulse control to do the right thing always. He's always like so like there are times like here where he'll do the right thing and like take Malta home, but there's other times where he'll just like basically like be like I don't want to or I think this is better. Like he'll let his greed or like fear take him over. So
Yeah.
um
I think that's all I have for this chapter.
I think I had one more note where I think it's interesting how Keffria grew up and set her goals, which is I need someone to take care of me so I don't end up overworked like my mom, which is like her goals were set based on how she observed her mom living. And Malta's goal, which is I don't want to be stuck into a marriage too early, um, and not have like freedom to like explore the world or have mobility that being single affords, is also a goal that is made by observing her mom, Keffria.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how like generationally they see kind of the flaws in how their parents lived. They kind of get the right lesson and then they apply it in the worst way possible.
Worst way. The most wrong way, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all I had for that chapter. Do we have time for the last chapter here?
I don't think that I do because I know that I'll have so much to talk about, even though I had like minor notes.
Okay, we can wrap up the show here then and then do chapter 19 next time.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So with that, we are going to be wrapping up the show now. We'll do chapters 19 through 23 next time. So we'll just fold that into the 5 chapters for next time. But yeah, we had a lot to talk about and slightly shorter time. But I think we have a lot more interesting things to talk about. So it all works out.
We did a lot less complaining about Kyle in this section, I think.
Yeah, strange. When he doesn't show up,
Thank God. Sometimes I just need a break from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, we'll be getting a few extended breaks from him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, okay. Until next time. See y'all.